Welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Davius.
This is episode number 50. I wonder if she plays ESO. Speaking of ESO... No.
There it was. It was so natural. Right? It was so natural.
Have you got on PTS?
I have not gotten on PTS, but I there's 2 or 3 times that I almost logged on, and then I decided I wasn't going to do it because I wanted to be...
You want to be fresh.
I want to, my first time in the zone and seeing it, I want it to be live. Like, I want to keep that mystery alive.
I always just kind of barely. I like to log in and just run around for a while and just kind of get a sense of what the zone looks like. But of course, I don't accept any quests, or I don't really even go into any delves or anything like that. I did do an Oblivion portal, but I didn't finish it though. I just like ran around in there for a few minutes and then poured it out because I had some other like testing business I was up to. But I was just like running around and I saw one. I was like, ooh, may as well just jump in there, see what's up. So
are they like a solo situation, or do you go in there with other players?
That I'm actually not sure because there wasn't anyone else around, so it was just me in that one. But I actually don't know about that. It's a good question. I think I've been assuming. Well, it is labeled public dungeon. I remember seeing at the bottom of the screen when I was porting into it. At the bottom, it had that little plus player icon, public dungeon. It said public dungeon. So I guess probably other people can go in there.
I'm so intrigued by how it works. So, because they can't, they appear, right? It's not like they're set Oblivion portals, right? Don't they appear like in certain places?
They appear in certain places. I think they are in designated places, but ZOS doesn't put an icon on the map to show you. Yeah. But like players have posted their own map saying like, I think probably add-ons will show you where they are. Yeah, it's going
to show it, yeah. Kind of like the Harrow Storms, probably.
Yeah, well, do those have icons? Because like the Dark Acres, there's actually like a built-in icon for those on the map.
I never know what's real icon. Just because the add-ons, I don't know what's real icons and not real icons anymore.
That's true. I would say like if it's your first playthrough of the game and it's like you're just doing the RPG like single player mode sort of thing, like that was my first playthrough. Mm-hmm. Not having those map add-ons I think is the way to go. Maybe get the Sky Shard one, but otherwise kind of naturally uncovering that stuff is.
You remember when that was like the thing to do, is that you'd have a zone and you had to like check all the items in the zone. It's like all these little items in the zone. I got to fill them in. I got to color them.
That was an eternity ago. I love that, dude. I like any open world game. I know a lot of people say they get tired of those kind of games, but like a big Ubisoft style gigantic open world game with a gajillion icons on the map, I just like
one at a time. Let me start filling them in.
Yeah, man.
I will say I'm really excited about you mentioning that it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's really big. I ported into like the one freeway shrine that they just automatically unlock, and that I wanted to ride to that crafting station for the Heartland set.
Sure.
So I was going to craft some of that, and I remember riding on my main character, fully leveled mount. I was riding and thinking like, man, I've been riding forever. Pull up the map, I'm halfway there.
Wow.
Halfway to my destination.
Would you say it's like Morrowind big?
I didn't traverse the whole zone, so I'm not sure, but I got the sense that it was even bigger than that. Like, it kind of reminded me of Cyrodiil, which I guess it technically is Cyrodiil.
That makes me really excited. I'm excited for a big old zone. I guess it makes sense that it's big, though, because it doesn't have, like, 2 parts, like in Western Skyrim, you had Blackreach and Western Skyrim. So without kind of those 2 areas, it's probably just all the big zone.
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, it made me think of Cyrodiil. It's really like kind of wide open plains and rolling hills, and there's some trees and stuff, but it definitely has a Cyrodiilic kind of vibe to it, and then it kind of becomes more. As you kind of go further east, it becomes more like Murk-Miry looking. It kind of slowly, gradually transitions into that. But I didn't go too far that way. I just kind of stopped where that crafting station is. But But yeah, it seems enormous, though. It really does seem like truly enormous.
I know you never believe me because I'm always in East March, but I do get excited with new zones.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. There's, as far as I can tell, you know how like Elsewhere and some other zones have like really cool like alternate paths and stuff you can find and stuff like that. There's not much of that here because there's no real need for it because it's all as far as where I was going, it's all just kind of wide open. You can just go any direction you want anytime. There's not like mountains and stuff blocking your path.
Gotcha.
In the areas where I was, I didn't go across the whole map,
Sure.
so there might be other terrains. But it seemed pretty plain, but I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. You know, maybe lore-wise, that's how it is. You know, in the real world, there's areas that look like that, but it did seem pretty, like, basic
Pretty generic.
looking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want to start off with a couple of corrections. And correction number one, just so our friend Grizzly Khan can sleep at night.
Shout out Grizzly Khan.
Shout out to Grizzly Khan for correcting us on Discord. We were annoying him with the last episode because we kept calling this set Death Dealer's Feet. And apparently this word Fete, it's a French word according to Grizzly, and it's pronounced fete, right? Isn't that right, fete?
Yeah, it's fete. This one's on me. I'll take full responsibility for this one. I totally Googled the pronunciation and listened to it. It was a British accent saying fate that sounded like feet to me, which then we went down this tunnel and down this road that it ends up it's actually fete. But
it's funny how the actual pronunciation was wrong, but then you were wrong in a different way.
Yeah, I couldn't even hear it right. Like it was double wrong. Wrong on all accounts.
Yeah.
The worst part too is that there's just because of what's happened with this, I'm always like accidentally probably going to say Death Dealer's Feet, and Grizzly Khan, he's just going to be cringing every time. Yeah. I'm just going to be accidentally throwing it out there. But Death Dealer's Fete.
Death Dealer's Fete, it's a French word that means a celebration or festival.
There it is.
So the Death Dealer is going to celebrate something. Maybe it's his birthday. Another correction. This one will probably take a little bit longer to talk about, but of course we talked about these new proc set changes with this whole stat scaling situation on the last episode. And Davius, you said something about how crazy it is that proc sets will be scaling indefinitely, basically, with our stats. And I was like, no way. Like, they're definitely going to be capped at their original values. And you're like, oh yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
and then
surely
we just kind of
right.
moved on. And I edited in a little correction once I found out, because I found out the truth before I posted the episode. So I edited in a little correction. But still, we kind of resumed our conversation with that being the assumption. So I feel like we kind of have to have this conversation all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's really an entirely different thing. So, Davius, you were right. I was wrong. Rub it in, why don't you?
Hey, so far this episode, we're even. Unless you count the fate situation as 2 for me, then you're still up on me.
We'll count it as 1. All right. It cancels out. So yeah, proc sets, they do in fact scale indefinitely with your player stats. The more weapon damage you have, the more damage the proc set's going to do, or the more max stats you have, the more healing it's going to do. So that makes for a very different situation. We were thinking on the last episode, like, oh man, things are going to be a lot more, like it's going to be a lot more milder environment in PvP. Proc sets are probably not going to be that powerful. But it actually looks like the opposite's going to be true. And if things stay like they are right now, it may be the absolute worst proc meta ever.
Yeah, proc meta is going to have a whole new meaning.
Absolutely. It might not be a situation where players are running like 3 or 4 proc sets. They might just be running 2 proc sets, but they both are dealing 20k damage. You know, so what's the difference, really?
Yeah, I do see a scenario where this could work and it makes sense, but... very large butt here.
Large butt, got it.
Large butt, there it is. The problem with this is there's too many proc sets out there that are such massive loopholes for this, and people can take crazy advantage of them in such significant ways. there are builds out there where people, like you just said, people can throw 2 proc sets on and have like closer to 7,000, 7,500 weapon damage. And these
8,000 even. Like in CP, it's pretty easy. Like, and these are typical builds. Like, I think a lot of people are saying like, well, these are like really edge case weird builds where you're like really cheesing these stats to achieve those tooltips. That's a lot of the common responses you see on forums of people posting these screenshots. But like I'm telling you, like we do PvP day after day after day. These are typical builds.
Yeah, they're
that you see
very
all the time.
common builds. And it's just going to be, there's those certain proc sets out there people can take such advantage of, and it's going to be, it's crazy to say, but it's going to be worse than it already is. And it's already been kind of an issue. You know, with this most recent, the last patch, you know, we kind of got this stats buff, and that made it a little bit better. I think all around, we've said how great BGs have felt. And
yeah, that reduced the gap between like stat builds and proc builds for sure. It didn't close it all the way, but it helped.
Yeah, but this is just erasing, it seems like, the bridge that was starting to be built there. Yeah. I would be very surprised if everything goes live like this. You know, you never know, but I have to imagine that there's got to be some changes in the next couple of notes going forward.
I totally agree. I totally think that they will address this. Their stated intention is to reduce the effectiveness of proc sets. So, you know, I think maybe there were some things that were not taken into account, or maybe just to kind of get the PTS spun up, they just kind of threw some numbers out there and we'll tweak them as they go. Maybe that's been the plan all along. Week 2, you never see significant adjustments. It's always just kind of minor bug fixes week 2. Yeah. Next week is when we can expect to see them really addressing player feedback and making changes based on that. I know a lot of people like to say that the devs never listen to feedback, and this is definitely how it's going live. You see a lot of comments like that on the forums and stuff. People saying like, don't hold your breath. They don't listen to feedback. This is just how it's going to be. So get ready. I don't agree with that. I can recount lots and lots of times that they have listened and responded to feedback. It's usually times when it's a lot of resounding feedback of a lot of people kind of saying the same stuff. I think this is one of those times. You know, you go to YouTube and just search ESO PTS, and you see video after video after video of people demonstrating the issues here and what the concerns are. It's pretty clear. I think it's pretty obvious. I think they're going to make some adjustments. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it in previous episodes. There's been, proposed massive changes. They listen to the feedback and then they make the adjustments. Some of those being, they're kind of easy to forget about now, but some of those they proposed, whole new combat ways to do combat, and they were just going to make all these changes to, I don't even remember them now, but I remember it was a bunch of changes to how they did heavy and light attacks and all this, and the feedback came in and they went, all right, we hear you all, like, never mind, and they just dropped it. So I do think they've shown a good job here recently listening to feedback. Cyrodiil, I think right now is another good example of that with the, we're coming up on almost a year's worth of testing in there. So
that's all based on feedback. The fact that they're even making an attempt at all to address the proc meta is an example of them responding to feedback. I think, sometimes it's like trying to alter course on a giant ship. It's hard for them to respond and address feedback in a timely manner, and they can't always do it in a way that everyone's going to be pleased with.
We've got to give them time until it goes live. There's still opportunities for this thing to be in a more.
If next Monday rolls around, it's week 3, and there's no acknowledgement or anything about any of this, then I'll start getting worried.
Yeah, then I think we can start getting worried.
I have to think, even if they don't intend to make any adjustments, I have to think minimum we'll get a dev comment acknowledging that you have these concerns, here's our reasoning, maybe something like that. But honestly, I think there will be some number adjustments. I really do. Like the common suggestions have been either raise the required stats, the amount of stats you need to reach that original value. Mm-hmm. Some people are just saying just cap them, just make it so you reach the original value and then stop.
Yep.
I've heard some people, this sounds like maybe a pretty good suggestion, is just make Battle Spirit cut procs in half, like it does healing.
Oh, that's interesting.
That could be a solution, perhaps.
The one that I don't know why it made sense to me, but I kind of like is that just make all proc sets based off resource stats instead of making it off weapon damage or some off health or some, just if it's a stamina set, make it based off your max stamina. If it's a magic set, make it based off your max magicka.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Although I think if it's like all one stat, I feel like people are going to be able to cheese it. Like that is another thing I've seen people suggest is maybe just like regular abilities, make it based on a combination of your stats. And that would maybe even things out because then you need to invest in a little bit of both and none of them are going to be too terribly high.
Yeah, the biggest problem with one I'm talking about is your health-based proc sets. We have to say it to the one of me and your favorite sets. Crimson Twilight. Oh boy!
You say that jokingly because we actually neither of us have a set of
and we refuse.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it because this is actually maybe the most hilarious part of these proc set changes because people have been complaining about this proc meta for a while. The thing that they've been complaining about is that there are these builds that put all of their points into health. And then they just use all these proc sets to have all this free damage, even though they don't have any offensive stats whatsoever. And Crimson Twilight is the primary offender. There's a number of those builds out there. There's a few different variations of them. Almost all of them have Crimson Twilight in there.
Oh, yeah.
And now Crimson is scaling off of your maximum health. So the set that is like the go-to set for these max health proc builds that everyone's complaining so much about. Now it's incentivizing you even more to make that kind of build, to put all your points into health. And the more health you have, the stronger it is. Mm-hmm. I think people are posting like 12K tooltips, something like that on Crimson builds.
Yeah,
it's a viable build. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I say, this isn't some like weird off-kilter cheesed out build. You see these kinds of builds all the time. They're common.
Yes, and this set, it's a massive heal, it's a massive AoE, combined with the Bone Goliath Necro and that AoE damage.
Yes,
the massive amount of health that Bone Goliath gives. It's just insane. You could, and 38,000 health. I think that's the metric. Like that's the balance. The average to once you go over that, you're getting buffed. Uh-huh. Those high health sets are hitting that easy. Easily right now. It's so easy to hit if that's all you're speccing into.
Totally. So Crimson is actually just kind of a hilarious example because I love that there was like this big dev post talking about, all right, guys, we've heard you, the proc meta, it sucks. We're going to get through it. We're going to address it. And then they just went and made the public enemy number one, Crimson Twilight. They made it even worse in exactly the way that everyone is complaining about. It's just really funny how much of a whiff that is.
Oof.
But if you want to see kind of some details and some examples, Christopher ESO on YouTube made a pretty good video. It's just titled "A Proc Meta Like Never Before." It's one of his more recent videos. You can find that there. There's a bunch of other people that have made videos too. Like I said, you can just search ESO PTS and you'll see a lot of stuff. I think to me it seems pretty clear that adjustments need to be made one way or the other. There's a number of ways it could go.
Yeah, and I think they will be. Maybe not, but I'm confident that some changes are about to be made.
It's also kind of funny too that amidst all this proc scaling business, hardly a word about the Malakath nerf. The significant, gigantic Malakath nerf. Everyone uses Malakath. In PvP, to be competitive, it is required. So you would think there'd be some people out there like complaining about it, about this being nerfed so much. But I think everyone realizes that we're being given access to so much more damage than ever before, even without Malakath. Plus, you can still use Malakath.
This was supposed to be the front page news, and it really has just kind of just fallen off. Nobody is even mentioning it.
I saw one forum post, and like the title was like, "Was Malakath nerfed too much?" And it was like, no. Just like comment after comment, like, no.
I think that feeds into this too, is that everyone that wears this, and we have multiple characters that wear it, and like you said, if you want to do well in Battlegrounds, and if you're in the high MMR and you even want to do anything in high MMR, you've almost have to have this equipped.
Oh, totally.
But it's, everybody that has it knew. I mean, I think we all knew a nerf was coming. We knew it needed to be nerfed. We knew it was coming. And so now that the nerf has come, I think that nerf's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's still totally a usable item, and it's still like, if you're looking for one single item that will boost your damage more than anything else, it's for most builds, this will be that item, but it's not so much damage. Like, you are going to have to weigh it against what you'll be giving up. Like, I was considering putting it on my MagPlar, but once I kind of would make the adjustments to that build that I would want to make as a result of that, I'd be giving up like 9% movement speed and like 800 something max stats, and that character's max stats are already pretty thin. So that's a hard decision to make. It's for like another 7% or so damage, I think, that I would be getting from Malakath. So I would like that damage. 7% is pretty good, but is it so good that I'm willing to give up that other stuff? Before, like currently right now on live, it's an easy decision.
Yeah.
I'm just stubborn and don't want to put Malakath on all my builds, but if I was not that way, it'd be the obvious thing to put on there.
I will say that the nerf, I honestly can't say if I feel good or bad about it. I think it's good that it's nerfed. As somebody who has, multiple characters that wear it, I think it's good that it's nerfed. I feel like its biggest challenger is this brand new one that's coming out, this Gaze of Sithis. I think, at least in a BG sense, I think that the two mythics we're going to see the most is the Gaze of Sithis helm and Malakath, and maybe Wild Hunt, close third. But
I think we'll probably see a lot of that new waiting kilt that gives you all like the 20% crit damage.
Crit damage ramps your crit damage.
I think we'll see a number of Nightblades using that thing.
It's true.
But you're right. So far, the Malakath Band of Brutality has been the thing. Like, if you want to play competitively, like get a competitive number of kills in the ultra sweaty pre-made matches, Malakath is required. You're not going to be able to do it otherwise. Now, of course, we have builds that don't use Malakath, and, we can kind of form our own metrics and our own standards of success and be pleased with the performance of those builds like that. Like my Stamina Templar Old Betsy, she does not use Malakath. She uses Wild Hunt instead. And I love that build. She typically goes like 8-1.
Yep.
And I consider that a good match for her. But my Stamina Dragon Knight that uses 4 proc sets in Malakath goes like 30-0 most of the time.
If you don't hit 30 kills, I'm like, hey, what happened in that match?
And my StamPlar is my main, the character that I play all the time, and my StamDK I hardly ever play.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone through phases where I have played her. She has high MMR, but I'm not skilled with that character, but it's every single time I have like some of the most kills on the map. And that's not skill. That's just spamming a gap closer mostly.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that Malakath needs to be nerfed a little bit more? Or do you think it's right in the sweet spot now?
I think it's pretty close to the sweet spot. Because, like, to me, like I was just saying about... So, like, I have my MagPlar build, and I posted a link to the MagPlar build in the Discord like a week or so ago. And our buddy Caliban chimed in. He's like, you could put Malakath on there and use like 2 swift pieces of jewelry and kind of have the same build but a lot more damage. And I was like, yeah, but I already have Malakath on 2 characters. I don't want to put Malakath on every character. But it was like eating away at me after that. It's like, man, this character, I'm willfully crippling my character by not using Malakath.
Yeah.
But then I thought, like, well, Malakath is getting nerfed, so let me just think in terms of this new patch coming up. And so I started kind of weighing it against like what I'd be giving up versus what I'd be gaining, and it actually is a hard decision now. So I do think it's probably pretty close. It's like slightly better than having like a middle of the road normal crit rate. Like we talked about on the last episode, if you have a 50-50 crit rate, crit damage situation, Malakath will be a little bit better than that, and I think that's what you want. Out of a mythic item, it should be better. The problem is we're just trading Malakath for Gaze of Sithis. Kind of like what I was getting at earlier. Like right now, if you're going to play like at the elite level and get those kinds of results, Malakath is required. And now with Malakath getting nerfed and then this ridiculous Gaze of Sithis helmet, mythic helmet being added, this is just the new required item. If you want to be
Yeah.
competitive in the ultra sweaty pre-mades, and that's not every match. You can play in the solo queue
Sure.
and you can run pretty much any build you want and probably have good success there if you're a good player. But I'm talking about competitively. This helmet in its current state will be required, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And this is one, like the proc set scaling, I think we can say like, surely they're going to address that. I kind of feel I can kind of relax about that. Like, they're going to handle that. They've already stated that they want procs to be weaker than they are. So they're not going to let that go. This Gaze of Sithis helmet, I can't be so confident about that. They let Malakath go for a year. They might let this go for a year.
It's very true. I think it would make a lot of sense to us if they lowered the max health it gave and lowered the armor it gave. But I'm with you. I think that I could very much see this one kind of going live and it just kind of being the go-to mythic item for a while, just like Malakath was.
That wading kilt, the Harpooner's wading kilts, I think will also be very sought after for Nightblade specifically.
Remind me again the name of the mythic item gloves. Stranglers.
Oh, the Thracian Stranglers?
Thracian Stranglers. They never, in my opinion, I think you agree with me on this, they never really fixed those. They
never got it right.
They never got it right. And it almost seems like this kilt, they were just like, all right, forget the Stranglers. We're just going to come out with a new one. And this kilt is kind of what they kind of wanted the Thracian Stranglers to be as far as like a unique damage ramping type of item.
Yeah, it's in that ballpark of ideas. I think Nightblades will have a tough decision though between this Sithis helmet and that, because they're both would be excellent on a Nightblade.
And Malakath. I mean, Malakath and the helmet. That's going to be tough not to pick those. It's going to be tough.
Well, new Malakath, I think probably most Nightblades are not going to go for the new nerfed Malakath. I think it's not going to be worth it for them now, which is a good thing. That's a crit class.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Because I think that Harpooner's wading kilts, they'll get more damage out of that than Malakath, I'm pretty sure. Because of their guaranteed crit out of cloak. That's what you got to remember. Like they can guarantee their crits.
That might be a complaint for us in a couple episodes from now.
Gankers are everywhere.
Yeah.
Gankers have made kind of a comeback. If you notice, there's a lot more Gankers in Battlegrounds these days, having good success.
I very much noticed that. I've been on the receiving end of a couple of those where I'm like, wow, it actually happened. They pulled off
rough. The gank. Wow, yeah. It's usually. Back in the day, I feel like it was impossible for a Nightblade to pull off a gank. Like I would break CC and get out of it before they could finish their combo. But man, it doesn't take long. If they can just land a heavy attack out of stealth, a lot of the time, that's all it is. That's all they need.
Yep, very true.
So anyway, that was I guess started as our corrections segment and then just morphed into a bunch of other stuff. But there was a PTS update this week. This is week 2, version 7.0.1. Just as predicted, Dullsville, pretty much.
Not much in there.
Not a lot. It's a bunch of random fixes, just audio fixes and animations and really a lot of boring stuff. Just Google search ESO PTS notes if you want to read it all yourself. I think Grizzly was excited about maybe some housing items and
a bunch of fixes with the companions. That was a whole big chunk of it.
A lot of companions adjustments. I'm sure many more companions adjustments to come.
Yes.
I have not messed with the companions on PTS at all. I've read some comments of what people have said about them on the forums, like from them testing them out. Seems like they're going to be kind of weak. As far as their capability against mobs and stuff.
This was another thing I was thinking this weekend is that I think that I'm a little bit more excited about companions than you are. And I was like, well, I wonder why this is, because we both go through quest content, not super fast, but we kind of both go through it, get a feel for it. And then it hit me. My main quest character is Davius. He doesn't do a whole lot of damage. So questing recently with him is then a slight bit of a struggle. So the idea of him to a little bit easier getting through the quests, I think that's going to be a big reason why I might get my companion up. Just to,
I wonder
to make questing
how much easier it's going to be, though, is the question.
Hopefully, we're talking quest mobs. Surely they'll be able to make a dent in those.
From what I've read online, I wouldn't
Yikes.
be so sure. It seems like they're maybe on the level of like those temporary companions that you can get on certain quests and stuff that like help you out during fights. Or like in the beginning, like I think Lyra's Titanborn is following you around. She helps you fight a couple of things, but she doesn't do much. It seems like it's maybe going to be about on that kind of level.
Ooh, boy.
You're right. I'm really not excited about the companions. I mean, I'm not talking trash about it. I'm sure there's lots of people that are going to be totally stoked about it, but I don't. That's not the feature that's going to sell me on this expansion.
Sure.
But there's lots. I mean, there's lots of other things. I got to get that Sithis helm.
Speaking of features that's going to sell you on this one, do we want to talk about this set right here?
Oh wait, first I want to mention there is one kind of combat related thing that's kind of worth mentioning. We don't even have to really discuss it, but I do want to mention the Nightblade Shadow Image ability, the one where you cast a little shadow image and then you can teleport back to it when you cast it again. The shade from this ability will now spawn directly at your location, like exactly where you're standing. And then when you teleport back to it, you're put directly at its location. So you can be more precise with how you use it. I think that sounds like a good change. The dev comment, they say, these changes should add more precision to utilizing the ability while also fixing issues where it could occasionally get you into areas where you did not belong. Tisk, tisk.
So as a non-Nightblade player, what's the big change with that? It's just more accurate. Before you could kind of have a little bit more wiggle room?
Well, the way it is right now is you summon this thing and it appears next to you, not exactly where you're standing, but next to you. And then when you teleport back to it, it can be kind of unpredictable exactly where you're going to end up when you teleport back, because you're standing next to the shade, not right on top of it. So this change will be like, okay, I'm standing exactly right here. So when I cast this thing, it's gonna be standing like where my feet are, and then when I teleport back to it, I'm going to be standing where its feet are.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems like, we've both run into some Nightblades that are very skilled with this ability, and it seems like it's going to reward those really skilled players with this ability. So that does. It's
better than Cloak a lot of the time. Like I think if you're like trying to make room on your bar for different abilities, and you're trying to think like Cloak or Shade, I honestly think Shade a lot of the time is better than Cloak, because Shade actually gets you out of there. You're like not there anymore.
I've lost some Nightblades when they use this ability. You just completely lose them. You're just especially in PvP areas, if they around a corner or up, they're up in a higher area. You're just like, okay, that one, he's gone.
Yeah. Now if you can fit Shade and Cloak on your bar, then no one can touch you. Really, that's the only thing though. That's like the only somewhat interesting thing this week of PTS. Otherwise, it's a bunch of just kind of fixes and stuff. So I don't want to really spend any more time on that. Next week should be more interesting. I think we'll probably end up having some more PTS talk next week. But let's turn the clock back a little bit, go back to last week, and talk some more about this Heartland Conqueror set. Don't really see many people talking about Heartland Conqueror, but I think that this is one of the more interesting things being added to the game this patch. Maybe the most interesting thing. Just because it's not overpowered. It's not like the Sithis Helm where it's just like, this thing's insane.
Yeah.
But it is a very good set.
Maybe your new favorite set in the game.
Currently, it's the one I'm most enamored with, for sure. Yep. Now, another quick correction here. Heartland Conqueror, on the last episode, we were talking about using this set with the infused trait on your weapon. Heartland Conqueror does not affect the cooldown portion of the infused trait, just the potency.
You want to do a reminder of the set?
Oh, yeah. Heartland Conqueror, this is the set that increases the potency of your weapon trait by 100%, right? It doubles the effectiveness of your weapon trait. So really, really cool. And on the last episode, we were talking about using it with the infused trait and how that would, increase the potency of your weapon glyph. And would also reduce the cooldown down to, we were thinking like 1 second or maybe even less. But not true at all. The cooldown stays exactly the same. It's a 50% reduction, which is what infused gives you to begin with. But the potency, how strong that glyph is affected. So just another correction. There's a bunch of corrections this episode. By the way,
I've lost tally of our corrections.
Yeah, just a big correctisode. By the way, if you're hearing a bunch of banging noises, my neighbor's doing like some sort of DIY project or something over there, so you might hear some construction noises from the neighbor. I apologize if that comes through. Anyway, yeah, Heartland Conqueror does not affect the cooldown portion of infused, just the potency. I also made a note here that, the comparison that's kind of immediately comes to mind is you want to compare this to Torig's Pact, because they kind of do sort of similar things, or they can. I think, to me, the comparison there is this is going to be a lot easier to use than Torig's. Torig's, you have to proc a glyph in order for it to do anything, so you actually have to attack someone. Whereas this set, you just have to be on the bar, for the trait that you want to be using, and this is active and it's doing what it does. But they have different uses. I also want to remind people, because I see this happen all the time, and I do it myself sometimes. But remember, as we talk about this set here, because we're going to be talking a lot about traits and enchantments, and just remember that those are two different things. Your weapon has a trait, and it also has an enchantment, and they're different. Mm-hmm. I just want to run down some numbers here, and I'll try to get through it quickly, just because I don't like a lot of number talk. But I think this is kind of interesting, and it'll help me sort of make a point I'm trying to make here. So the sharpened trait, it gives you 3,200 penetration on a two-handed weapon. And that we could say that is roughly equivalent to the spinner or Spriggan 5-piece bonus, which gives you 3,400. So 3,200 versus 3,400, I'm going to say that's basically the same thing. So if you were wearing Spriggan and you had the sharpened trait, then you would have double the amount of penetration, more or less. Or if you're wearing Heartland Conqueror, you also have double the amount of penetration. So it kind of disguises itself as Spriggan when you're wearing the sharpened trait. We can kind of say the same thing about the defending trait. It gives you the same amount of armor, 3,200, which is basically equivalent to fortified brass. The 5-piece bonus gives you 3,460. So if you were to combine those, where fortified brass and the defending trait, that's twice the amount. And same thing, Heartland Conqueror would give you a similar effect, right? Same thing with like Precise and Mother's Sorrow. Those kind of become equivalent when this set is in the equation. Some others, I don't necessarily have like sets to compare them to, but just some other really interesting numbers. The powered trait gives you an additional 18% healing done. So that means Heartland Conqueror is giving you a free 9% additional healing done. And there's no real 5-piece set that just straight gives you 9% healing done, unconditional, stacks with anything that you can throw at it.
Yep.
Nirnhoned with this set becomes 30% increased damage done. The training trait. This is the de facto training set. The training trait goes up to 18% experience gained.
Yeah.
There's no other set, I don't think, that just straight increases your XP level, right? Or your XP gained.
Not that I'm aware of. I know that, there's scrolls and food. Was it food or potion that does it? But not like this. This is going to be, like you said, the de facto leveling set. And
it's a crafted set. The stats are for both Magicka and Stamina. It only requires 7 traits learned to craft it. So it's going to be easy. An easy set to just slap on a character that you're leveling up. It's going to work really well. You're going to level up really fast. This is just such a cool set. Now, I don't know if it's bugged or if it's intentional or what, but the decisive trait, the one that gives you ultimate, does not appear to be affected at all by this set.
It's got to be.
I know.
They can't do that
to me. It saves. I feel like that's got to be unintentional, because we crunched the numbers and that wouldn't be like an insane amount of ultimate. No. It would be good. It'd definitely be very good,
but it's not. Yeah. It's not just game changing.
Yeah, I don't think it would be game changing at all. But anyway, that's just kind of a rundown. Oh, I wanted to talk about infused as well. I know we talked a lot about infused last episode, but just some quick numbers. So infused with a weapon damage glyph gives you 452 weapon damage when that glyph procs. Heartland Conqueror turns that into 556 weapon or spell damage. Toryg's Pact would turn that into 655. So Toryg's Pact, a little bit stronger, like 100 more weapon and spell damage you would get from that glyph. Which is as it should be. That's what Toryg's does.
Yeah, Toryg's should, always be used with the infused glyph, the infused trait.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the cool thing about this set is that, Toryg's is really kind of for that fused trait, but this set, it's a multitude of sets depending on which trait you're going to go with for your character. It can be completely different sets on different characters.
That's kind of the point that I'm getting at is you can sort of mix and match these different 5-piece bonuses, quote unquote 5-piece bonuses, right? Like you can have Spinner is the perfect example. You can have Spinner on the front bar and Fortified Brass on the back bar. So I think the easiest way to kind of drive the point home here is let's put together a couple of hypothetical builds. This has been like my favorite thing to do here lately. Let's make a hypothetical build here.
Hypothetical.
So maybe I want to make a Glass Cannon Magicka Nightblade. And let's say I'm thinking of using Spinner, 5 pieces Spinner, 5 pieces War Maiden. I want to use those 2 sets together. Both of those sets are front barable, right? Meaning the 5-piece bonuses both are useless on my back bar, which is my healing bar, right? So I don't need either one of them, but I can only front bar one of them. So I'll front bar War Maiden, put a War Maiden Flame Staff on the front bar. I'll do a Maelstrom Resto Staff on the back bar. And then I'm still stuck with the Spinner 5-piece bonus on both bars, where it gives me Penetration. Penetration is great on my offensive bar, but it doesn't do a thing on my healing bar. So it'd be nice if I could trade that for something different. So if I were to replace Spinner with Heartland Conqueror, which, by the way, the 2 through 4-piece bonuses are very similar to Spinner. So you'll have almost identical stats. But then when you swap to the back bar, say you have the defending trait on your Resto Staff, now it's Fortified Brass. So you're actually getting something useful when you swap to your back bar, and you still have those Spinner levels of penetration on your front bar. You've lost nothing, and you've gained a lot of defensiveness. That's one example. And then one other example I have, like for a stamina build, say like a Stamina Templar, we could do a similar thing. Say you wanted to use 5 Spriggan, 5 Deadly Strikes. So you could front bar Deadly Strikes and put a Master Bow on the back bar, replace Spriggan with Heartland Conqueror, and now if you have the Sharpen trait on the front bar, it's basically identical to Spriggan on the front bar. But then on the back bar, say your Master Bow is infused with a weapon damage glyph, and then the set turns into a slightly weaker Toryg's Pact, and it juices up that infused weapon damage glyph by another 30%. More than what you would have had before. And now you switch to your front bar, you have that big stack of weapon damage from that glyph and your Master Bow. And on top of that, you have your Spriggan levels of penetration to go with it. So it's just better. It's just a better setup than using Spriggan.
It just seems it seems like it's going to be so easy to find a home for this set on a character and really, pick the character and you can find a way to make it work. I think you had said you might end up having this on multiple characters just because it's going to act so differently. I'm for sure going to at least have it on one character. I might have it on multiple characters. I'm definitely going to look at Lord of Nords. If that decisive trait ends up working out, I'll definitely look at it on him just to see what the ultimate game can be. And you had mentioned this already, but you really can't even underestimate the 2 through 4 parts of this set because they're great. It's a great 2 through 4.
You get weapon and spell damage, max magicka, and max stamina.
It's great.
Just put it on any character.
Yeah, I mean
it's craftable, crafted in any weight. It's just fantastic.
I have made the note that we are switching from Stoon's Goons to the Heartland Band.
Okay. I was thinking the Heartland Conquerors, but yours is probably better.
The Heartland Band, The
Heartland Band, yeah. We're getting into we're country western themed ESO guild.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it really is. I mean, I think we're both really excited about this set just because such a well-designed set, very balanced. And just so cool to get such different uses out of this set on different characters. To think this is a great heal set, with that powered, getting that double powered. You can throw it on a healer and it's a great heal set. And then on the have it on another character, and you're getting spinner out of it, and you got it on a damage character. It's just so cool that it's so different.
Did you try again?
Oh, my watch is getting mad at me. It's so cool that you get, two different uses out of the same set, and they just act completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I think there's a lot of cases where this is simply going to be the best option. Like, we do this all the time. Like I'm trying to rethink up a new build for my Magic at Templar here lately, and I'm off to a good start. And I do what we always do when we're trying to put together a new build. We'll pull up esosets.com and just look at a list of literally every set in this game until something catches our eye and we go, aha, that one will work. And so I'm like putting together my MagPlar build, and I'm going through. I come across this set, Heartland Conqueror, because it's on there now. They've updated it. And it's just like that. Aha, this will be perfect. This is exactly what my build needs. It can give me offense on the front bar. It can give me more healing power on the back. More healing power than any other non-proc set can give me. It's the best choice.
Yeah. And I really like that it's not replacing Torix. Torix still very much has a place.
Yeah.
This is more to pair with other different type of trait. If you're running an infused build, Torig's still great, but this is kind of allowed a more flexible style of play. Now,
this will be, a PvPer trying to speak as a PvE expert here, so forgive me, but I'm thinking PvE tanks may want to use Heartland Conqueror and Torig's Pact, because something that they like to do is to use a weakening and crusher glyph. So the crusher glyph reduces a boss's resistance, and it's a unique debuff, right? It stacks with all other sources of penetration. So that can be a really nice, juicy source of additional penetration for the boss, which will help your stamina DDs especially. And then that weakening glyph, a real big, juicy weakening glyph to reduce the amount of damage that the boss is doing to everyone, could also be really, really helpful. So that could be... Torix has always been a pretty popular PvE tanking set for that exact type of usage.
Yeah.
So like just doubling down on that kind of usage, if it's not a super hard boss where the tank struggles to stay alive, that might be one of the best ways to boost the damage of your overall group and also help their survivability. One of the best ways anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I thought you made a really good pair, because I think initially a lot of people thought, all right, this set with Torix is going to be good for all builds. But I thought you kind of really, when we were talking, you kind of broke it down that really may not be the best pairing for in a PvP kind of damage sense, just because you're kind of nuking yourself from maybe another damage set, trying to just go all in on this. And maybe if you go all in on these glyphs, that it's not going to equal out to a damage set.
Yeah, you'd have to test it and know for sure, and it depends on what else is going on in your build too, like what other sorts of stats you have in there. It may or may not be the best pairing. I think it could still be a very powerful pairing if your build is set up right. But I feel like that was just the obvious go-to, like, oh yeah, what if you pair it with Torig's Pact? But when you think about it some more, there's actually a lot of really good possible uses for this set, not just that. And that might actually just be sort of a niche sort of setup when it comes down to it.
Sure.
Awesome set. I'm not even really done talking about it yet. We can get into what we've been doing this week. We've been playing some Elder Scrolls Online. Davis, why don't you kick us off, man? What have you been doing in ESO?
I have come down with old Betsy syndrome. It's happened.
Right, that's what I like to hear.
You've been trying to infect me, and it's finally taken hold.
It's spreading.
My StamPlar. I've Need for Mead, Nord StamPlar. Finally have got this thing working. I've kind of made some slight tweaks, so the setup I have is 5 Ancient Dragon Guard, 5 Deadly Strike, 1 Peace Trainee, 1 Peace Wild Hunt, and then the backbar Master Bow.
Yeah.
So the big change I made is that I was running the Dagon set that adds to your AoE damage, so it's just a lot of damage, and it was a lot of damage. But I think I think I was kind of, we've even said this in the past. I think I just kind of was pushing a little too hard. I was kind of getting outside of my playstyle. And, we always have talked in the past about playstyle is a big part for a build and a build working is, you want to make sure that your playstyle. And that is a very, very squishy, can't be touched type of playstyle.
Yeah, it was Dagon and Deadly Strikes, right?
Dagon and Deadly Strikes. So
Yeah.
it was 7 pieces medium, all medium, which
Yeah,
I think
that
is
not
what
your
you
style
run.
at all.
No. And so I added this Ancient Dragon Guard, it's a craftable set. And I'm kind of running this is my first hybrid armor setup. It's actually 3 heavy, 3 medium, 1 light.
Oh, cool.
But it's been like the perfect sauce. It's made all the difference for me in the character. Obviously, Ancient Dragon Guard, when you're above 50%, it's just giving you 300 weapon and spell damage. Below 50%, it just kind of gives you a buff to your resistances, makes you a little tankier. But it's a little bit more of my playstyle, a little bit tankier, but it's just been working so much better for me, and I'm having so much fun with this build now. It is.
You're still going to be speed capped, I think, when you're sprinting with all your speed buffs up. Yep. So you haven't really given up all that much. And you're totally right that playstyle is it really is everything. People ask all the time, like, what's the best build or what's the best class for such and such. And sometimes you'll see someone really smart reply, the best build is the one you feel most comfortable with, right? Yep. Like I think I saw a comment on the forums. I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but they were talking something like, Stamina Necromancer is the meta, but I'm best with my MagPlar because that's my main character. And if I log on with my StamCro, I don't get nearly the results I get with my MagPlar. So for me, MagPlar is the meta.
Yeah, and I think the perfect example is me living this build. We did a bunch of battlegrounds, and before I changed it, I think my numbers were, I was getting like 3 and 6 or like 2 and 5 or it was just struggle after struggle. It's just a whole lot of deaths, even ones where I'd get a lot of kills. It was still matching amount of deaths, and just this slight change to make it a little bit more my playstyle. I almost always get really good numbers with it. I'm getting, kind of those old Betsy numbers, 8 and 1, 7 and 2.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah. And it really, I would say that this is now competing with Lord of Nords as probably my 2 favorite characters to play with and the ones that I'm the most comfortable with right now.
Awesome.
And, this one is probably going to jump to the lead on that after this patch, just because Lord of Nords technically slightly be getting nerfed. He'll be getting a slight nerf, but
plus you're addicted to that speed.
Yeah, that speed, man. It's you can't once you taste it, you can't not have it.
Yeah, I know, for real.
I've had a lot of fun with this character. It's working out really well.
Heck yeah, dude. I'm glad to hear that. Stamina Templar is the best spec you can play in this game. Prove me wrong. I know it's not meta. I've actually seen quite a few posts, people complaining that StamPlar is in such a bad spot right now, and actually like comment after comment after comment of people agreeing, saying, yeah, what's the deal? When are we getting some buffs here? And I'm thinking, like, this is the best my StamPlar has ever felt, I think.
Feels pretty good right now.
But that's not to say those people are wrong. I think it's just the play style that I've chosen for my StamPlar works pretty well. In this sort of meta. Speaking of Templars, not StamPlars, but MagPlars, I've been spending some time with my Magicka Templar lately, and really in general, I made a note to myself to mention this. I've been enjoying playing Magicka builds in general here lately, which is kind of nice because I have not been enjoying playing Magicka builds that much these last couple of patches because
it's been a while.
Yeah, well, they just don't really compete with stamina builds, and I think now they finally kind of do because of these stat changes that we've had. Magicka builds have benefited greatly from like not having to invest in stamina all that much or at all in a lot of cases. And it's just a lot easier for them to stack the stats that they really do need and really be effective. And healing so much stronger. I think like Magicka builds inherently have better heals, and the fact that healing in general is so much stronger right now also helps them a lot.
Yeah.
So Magic at StamPlar. This dude started out as a Khajiit, a very short and chubby Khajiit named Jub Jub. But I wanted this build to kind of mimic my StamPlar playstyle a little bit, just be very speedy, but also very much a MagPlar. And if you recall, recently, a patch or two ago, orcs were changed, and they were given spell damage to their racial passives, in addition to their stamina and health and everything else that they have. So they actually are totally viable as a Magicka build now. So I changed this character from a Khajiit to an orc. He's an orc MagPlar, which is funny to me. But he still, I think, has the spirit of that old chubby Khajiit, though. He's a short, chubby orc. I renamed him Butch Mahoney, which I think is fitting if you see the guy.
If you see the guy, this is Butch. This is Butch Mahoney.
Oh, I'm pretty proud of this character's look. Got a good look.
He belongs on a beach.
Yeah, exactly. I got these pants that look just like a pair of shorts. I can't remember the name, but they're funny. But he's great right now. So what I'm doing with all my builds basically is I'm trying to get away from using proc sets or from relying on proc sets, and I want to make like these sort of pure stat based but very, very powerful builds. And I'm kind of going through my characters and kind of transitioning to that sort of build style. It might just be a phase, I'm just trying this out. This is just kind of what I'm feeling right now. Procs have been so ubiquitous for so long. I just kind of want to try to get away from them as much as I can.
Yep.
And I think it's totally doable right now, as long as you have reasonable expectations of what you're going to be able to achieve. The people running the 3 and 4 proc sets with Malakath, they're just going to get more kills than you. Just accept it.
It's just going to happen.
It's just how it is. But I've been having a ton of fun with this character, and he's been the MVP of a lot of matches. I can tell you that. It's a lot of fun playing as an orc MagPlar. He's so speedy, and right now the setup, basically Davius made this build for me. He just told me the sets to use, and I said, okay, that sounds great. I'm going to go do that. Right now, it is 5 pieces War Maiden, 5 pieces Innate Axiom, Maelstrom Resto on the back bar. So War Maiden is the front bar set. So Maelstrom Resto, and then 1 piece Molag Kenna and Ring of the Wild Hunt. So pretty similar to Betsy, really. Got an arena weapon on the back bar. We got Wild Hunt, that kind of stuff. Innate Axiom has been pretty good. It's a crafted set that buffs all of your class abilities by 400 weapon and spell damage. And it's working pretty good. I find the damage maybe is just a little bit lacking. War Maiden, I think, is great. War Maiden is working really, really well. The build uses only magic damage. Every offensive attack is magic damage, and War Maiden gives 600 spell damage to every single one of those attacks. So that's really, really good. What's nice about Innate Axiom is it applies to my front bar and my back bar. It helps my attacks because they're all class abilities, and like 2 out of 4 of my healing abilities are class abilities. As soon as this patch drops, Innate Axiom is getting replaced with Heartland Conqueror. And my front bar trait, I'm undecided whether it's going to be sharpened or nerd-honed or precise. It's going to be one of those 3, some offensive trait. And the back bar is going to be powered for that big, juicy 18% extra healing, which Heartland Conqueror is giving me 9% of that. And again, I can't find a single 5-piece set that gives me anything close to that. There is Healer's Habit. Healer's Habit gives you minor mending at all times, plus another, I think, 4 or 5% healing done on top of that. Minor mending is 8%. But Templars basically have minor mending at all times. They have a passive that just gives it to them all the time.
Yep.
So I already have that. So I don't think there's anything else that just straight gives me that much healing power that isn't a proc set.
Let me throw this out here. For some reason, when you talk about this build, things just come to my mind.
Uh-huh.
What if you swapped out your 1-piece Kenna for that's where you get your 5 pieces of War Maiden, and then you threw a Master Lightning Staff on the front bar? Then you get that extra. So then you're talking an additional 600 spell damage. So you got 600 from that, 600 from War Maiden, and then your stuff going on with Heartland.
That would work really well. I think my hang-up would be finding the bar space for
That's true.
That destructive touch ability that I'd have to use for that weapon.
That would be the toughie.
I could probably do it. I could probably like get rid of entropy and just use spell damage potions and use that ability in place of entropy.
You know, you never know. You get that weapon, that spell damage up.
That would pump that spell damage up quite a bit. That's a thought. It is a thought. But then I'm like thinking about, well, now War Maiden, I have a useless 5-piece bonus on my back bar, and that would just bother me.
Yeah, because it's just spell damage. I don't remember the wording of War Maiden, but it
adds 600 weapon damage to your magic damage abilities, abilities that deal magic damage.
That is it. But maybe, if you're getting more damage overall, maybe you could live with it. Maybe it would eat away at you anytime you're on your back bar.
I'll think about that. I'll see. Yeah, I'm telling you, like this build, Davies is just making this build for me.
You just say Butch, and I just started thinking, what does Butch need?
I could tell you just like this character.
I just like this guy. Really I like Butch.
He's a good guy.
Me and Butch go way back. We go way back.
We did a few matches with Butch and your StamDK, Lord of Nords. That seemed to go okay. That's what's nice about Butch is he's a pretty good support when he needs to be, and he also has really good offense. Like he's becoming my favorite like solo queue character because he can just kind of be prepared for anything.
Yeah, I would say he's an above average support. I mean, we ran a lot with my StamPlar and my StamDK, and it's pretty common for Butch to drop, 1 million damage, 1 million heals, or
he gets that double million nice and now and then. Is like if we get a good death match where like everyone in that match is like really playing fairly well, he'll hit that double million.
Yeah,
pretty
he'll
much
hit
guaranteed.
the double million for sure. Yeah, which is great because he's hitting hard, but those heals are just happening all the time, and so he's an above average healer. I mean, he does strong heals, which is surprising for how hard he does hit.
Yeah, and I think his heals once I get this Heartland Conqueror set on there. I mean, I don't do a lot of tooltip talk on here, but let's just.
You got to throw the number out there.
We're talking about Honor of the Dead, the other morph of Breath of Life. It's the one that I use. It's got a 15,000 tooltip.
That's ridiculous.
Radiating regen, 26,000.
He's hitting in with some heals. It's plenty of heals.
Some very strong heals. That's on the build editor with Heartland Conqueror on here. But build editor usually is pretty close in that regard.
Sure. And you had mentioned my StamDK. That's who I've been kind of running with him. And my StamPlar, but my StamDK here recently, I feel like I've always got to bring up Lord of Nords. Nords are my favorite. This is the character
this is your guy.
This is my guy. He's Lord of Nords. I mean, he's got to be my go-to guy.
He's the Lord of Nords. Nords are your thing. Who else could it be?
The devs know the name. They have thrown him into highest MMR possible.
They just had some sort of like bot always looking for that exact name, and then as soon as it pops up, we got him, boys.
Yep, we got him.
Put him in the sweatiest matches you can find.
Yep. We always joke about this. Anytime we group up with this character and go into a match, it's the sweaty matches for sure. He gets thrown. It
seriously is something about that character. It's always going to be we're going to struggle.
So I've kind of been tinkering with some changes with him. He's still pretty much the same. He's 5-piece Champion of the Hist, 3-piece Potentates, 2-piece Bloodspawn, 1-piece Trainee, 1-piece Malakath, and then I have the 2-hand Vatishran on the back bar. So the slight change there is that I have thrown Bloodspawn back on him.
Okay, what did you switch to Baylorg there for a while?
I had Baylorg for a while, and I'm still very back and forth on them. Because Baylorg, it's a little bit more damage, a little bit more penetration, and that's nice because he's always leaping. But I did go back to Bloodspawn just because it does make a massive. He's got 2 front and back bar decisive weapons, so that Bloodspawn and all the other stuff happening, it does equate to a lot more leaps. And I think that's
going to help your sustain quite a bit too. Because don't you complain about sustain with that guy quite a bit?
I think his fully buffed stamina recovery is like 1100.
It's pretty low.
He runs pretty low sustain, and so that blood spawn with the more leaps, it made a big difference on the sustain. And so I think I'll probably stick with blood spawn. I mean, he still feels great. He's a lot of fun. Like I said, I want this guy to be my guy. StamDKs right now, he of all my characters benefits the most if we're running support in a group.
StamDKs are tough right now. It's tough to play a StamDK and a MagDK, I would say too.
Yeah, and if there's support in the group, it is great. And that makes a huge difference. The only other issue that I run into him, and this is kind of the other one I think that with DKs, is that if we're in a battleground and it's very heavy ranged in the battleground,
it's going to mess you up.
You just get stuck in this middle ground with your DKs where you want to dive in there, but if you dive in there, everybody's just going to go all in on you. But when you're hanging back, you're just a target dummy, just absorbing all these blows.
If there's more than 2 enemy Sorks, just forget it. You're not going to be effective that match.
Unless
you have a pocket healer.
Yep. When there's a lot of range right now in BGs, it's a little tough. But I'm still having a lot of fun with this guy. He's going to probably, he's going to feel that Malakath nerf. But I've looked at it. I even traded out a couple different sets and looked at the numbers on the build editor. He's keeping Malakath. He's pretty much keeping this set. The only possible change, and I mentioned it earlier, is that if that decisive does work with the Heartland Conqueror, I'll probably swap out Champion of the Hist for Heartland Conqueror because, we kind of ran some numbers. And Heartland Conqueror with the decisive trait, it would bump that decisive trait up to 100%, which would be slightly more ulti gain than minor heroism. And so it would make a little bit more sense for that than the Champion of the Hist. I'd be getting a little bit more ultimate, and then I'd be getting some back bar benefits as well. So.
And if you really wanted to, because since you have so much more max magicka than we did a couple of patches ago, you could get rid of the tri-stat potions and use those heroism potions instead. I'm pretty sure they give you health, stamina, and minor heroism.
Ooh, I need to look into that. That would be, because you get that decisive up to 100%, you get minor heroism. Things really start getting crazy at that level.
Hopefully that does apply to decisive. I feel like it should. It doesn't seem too strong.
I told you this yesterday. I am strangely confident that it's gonna apply to decisive. It's gonna work. Decisive.
You heard it here, folks. Davius Starjumper. There's no way they're not gonna
do this. The dev that's always listening, always throwing me a bone every now and then. That dev likes me. The one that runs the arenas, that one hates me. It's a love-hate relationship here.
He's a great character. I love how you had this sort of outfit style for him, and you had these like really loud colors picked out for him. And then you just redid his coloring, and it's like just a little bit like muted version of those same colors. Yeah. It's like a little like classier version of Lord of Nords.
He's classed it up a little bit. He's Lord of Nords. He's part of the
It's still the same color scheme. I like it.
I do love his look. I think you always say it best. He looks like a WWE wrestler.
Yes.
Dressed in a full massive chunk of armor. And he kind of acts like that in Battlegrounds, so it works out well.
He's very brash and just leaping into every scuffle.
Oh yeah, He's doing really well right now. I also told you that, and it seems crazy, but I didn't have Fossilize on the build, and I just added Fossilize, and boy. What a fool
good ability,
I feel
right?
like now. That's a great ability. It's fantastic.
I could actually kind of understand before with such a limited Magicka pool, and Fossilize is pretty expensive. Now with so much more Magicka, it's hard to justify not using it.
I've got the magic for it now, and the Fossilize skill tree. I can't remember the name of the exact tree.
Earthen Heart.
One of the best passives. On the DK, you're giving yourself, not only yourself, but your entire team, the minor damage buff.
Minor brutality, or I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And I think that's either the only source or one of the very few sources of it. Let's see, Izzo minor brutality. you can also apply it with a poison, I guess. But Mountain's Blessing passive is basically the only source of that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great damage buff for using a great ability. So
yeah,
it's worked out really well. He feels really good. He'll get a little bit nerfed in this upcoming set, but I think he'll be fine. I don't think it's gonna be such a massive nerf. I'll probably still keep him the same. Like I said, the only thing would be that possible Heartland change.
Heartland on everything.
Heartland band.
The Heartland Conquerors. Yeah, the only other character I haven't really... Well, I've played with her some. My Magic and Necromancer, Despair. I've been playing with her a little bit, but she is a full-on proc support build. She uses a bunch of proc sets, and she's going to have to be totally reinvented.
This is the character I feel like that you have focused the most rebuilding efforts for. Like, you knew you had to rebuild it, and so this is the one you've been really strategizing with.
Well, this is by far my best support, like by a mile, and she's getting nerfed significantly, so we got to figure something out here. And I think we're off to a decent start. So like I was saying with my MagPlar, I'm trying to get everything shifted away from procs. I just want really good stats, really powerful abilities, and I want to rely on my character's abilities and those kinds of things to be successful. Rather than procs. And this seems like a good time to be shifting gears in that direction. The devs, I think they're going to sort all this scaling stuff out, and I think it's going to be a good time to have these kinds of builds running around.
Yeah.
Her old setup, or the current setup on live that she's using, is 5 pieces Ice Furnace, 5 pieces Savara's Scales, which is just active on the front bar, Maelstrom Resto on the back bar. That's going to end up on every Magicka character before long, I'm pretty sure. And then the Celestrix monster set, 2 pieces. So a bunch of AoE procs that are all getting nerfed significantly, and she doesn't have nearly the stats to make those be actually powerful procs. So getting rid of all those, I'm going to switch to a stat build. Again, just like the MagPlar, ESOsets.com, looking at every single set in the game, which one would be the best. And, none of them are really jumping out at me until... our old friend Heartland Conqueror.
Oh, Heartland Conqueror.
I think it literally is just simply the best choice. And you know me, Davis, you and I are both the same. We don't like using the same set on multiple characters. We like to have variety and stuff. But it's like the more I think about it, I literally can't think of a better set to use for this character. So the whole focus of this character to begin with is I wanted her to be a debuff machine where she's just making all of our enemies weaker. Also a CC bot. She's making it difficult for all of our enemies to move around. And I also want her to have very, very strong heals. That's kind of her central focus. And this last patch, she's done all that while also providing a ton of AoE damage as well with those proc sets. But with the proc set stuff going away, I think I'm going to try to refocus back on that core of lots of crowd control, lots of debuffs, very powerful heals. And I will have offense, but I think the offense is mostly going to be for the purpose of not getting focused when people realize I'm the healer.
Yeah.
So she has always used, since this character has existed, she has always used a charged Frost Staff with Wall of Frost on the front bar and a powered Resto Staff on the back bar. So her whole thing has always been to spam Wall of Frost and the remote totem on top of everyone to CC them as much as possible. And with that charged trait, it's a 220% increased chance to apply status effects. So like when I put Wall of Frost on someone, it has a much higher chance to apply the chilled status effect, which with Wall of Frost will also immobilize them. And with my Destro Staff passives, it also gives them that new Minor Brittle debuff. And Minor Maim to begin with reduces their damage done. So already, just by chilling them, they're getting their damage reduced, they're getting immobilized, and they're taking more damage. And that's just from my Wall of Frost. I also have flame damage and shock damage in this build. With Heartland Conqueror, it takes that charged 220% increased chance and makes it a 440% increased chance to apply these status effects.
It's got to be like a guaranteed chance, right? 440%.
I think like the highest chance The thing in the game that has the highest possible chance of applying status effects are glyphs, and I think they have a 20% chance. So I think that would take that up to an 88% chance.
Jeez.
And I use a frost glyph on that weapon as well. But you start looking for sets. I start looking around for sets like what would be a really good debuff set if I want to be like a debuff kind of build. There are some out there, but they give you like a debuff that you can apply. And it's usually like difficult to proc or some like unreliable way to proc. Whereas this, it just takes the debuffs that are already in my build and makes it like way, way more likely that I'm actually applying them to people. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I like the fact that Heartland Conqueror is a debuff set now, apparently, it turns out.
On this character.
Yeah. And then, on the back bar, obviously, just, again, the powered trait for that 18% healing done. And I won't go over tooltips again, but I can tell you some really good looking healing tooltips there. Well, I can say the Spirit Mender. Spirit Mender has like an 11K tooltip.
That's crazy.
I mean,
just crazy.
Automatic 11K every 2 seconds. Whoever on the team needs it, boom, 11K, 11K, 11K. So I think this is going to be a really good build. Heartland Conqueror will be kind of the core of it. Yep. Davis, you made another suggestion for her offensive set, maybe being Elemental Succession. And I hate the fact that probably is the best choice because it comes from the Maelstrom Arena.
The place that shall not be named.
And that wouldn't be that big of a deal if I didn't have to get the Frost Staff in order for this build to get all the pieces together. Like I must get that Frost Staff or I can't do the build.
You should have never said aloud that you wanted a specific staff from that place.
Now
Don't ever
know.
say it aloud.
They're always listening.
They're always listening. The person that runs that arena is like a dev that's worked there since the beginning of the game. Everybody's forgotten about his arena, and so he just makes it miserable. Those runs. He's just controlling that RNG.
Yeah. Everyone knows it's true.
Everybody knows that's what's happening.
We've all known for years. But yeah, that's what I would like to do is Elemental Succession on the front bar with the Maelstrom Resto Staff on the back bar. I already have the Resto Staff, of course, but Elemental Succession, if you don't remember, it gives like 452 spell damage to basically all of your elemental attacks, to shock damage, fire damage, and frost damage. And I have all three of those. Like all of my damage is those types of damage. So it'll be buffing all of my damage types, and all of those will be applying status effects as well with an increased likelihood thanks to my Heartland Conqueror charged staff. So I think that's what is going to be the core of the build. Heartland, Elemental Succession, Maelstrom Resto Staff, and then, I could either do a monster set or a mythic. That new Sithis helmet
looks pretty good on there.
Would look pretty sweet on this character for sure. But also Malakath, even the new nerfed Malakath would always be nice because even with this offensive set, she'll have just kind of okay-ish damage, but Malakath would actually make it like pretty decent damage. Mm-hmm. So that'll be a tough choice. I'll probably end up trying them both. I have a feeling I'll end up sticking with that Sithis helmet though, because I think that's going to just feel really, really good. Yeah. Like I just can't die. Just like everyone else, no one's going to die because we'll all be wearing it.
We're all going to be wearing that helmet. I think this is going to be a great character. I mean, I think like you just said, I think your damage might go down a little bit, but it seems like your heals are going to go up a whole lot. And this is
my heals are going to go up a lot.
It's always just a great support character. It's these MagCros. There's so much not in the numbers when you get to the end of the battleground, and Despair has great numbers in battlegrounds, but there's so much greatness that doesn't show up in the numbers at the end of a match. I mean, all those debuffs just make it so much. We always joke anytime we get that real small battleground arena, anytime we get that, it's like, oh, kind of wish Despair was here.
Wish Despair was here because she just owns that map. Absolutely. Yeah, this has been one of my favorite characters for a long time. Really, really effective support. I'm actually really looking forward to dropping the proc sets and just focusing in on what makes this character good, having really good stats, and just relying on these great abilities that she has. We'll see how this goes. I want to try a new segment. A while back, we recorded on the weekends, and what's nice about the weekends is the gold vendor is active, and I liked talking about the gold vendor, or we like talking about the gold vendor because it's just this automatic, like, weekly way of talking about a random collection of armor sets. Mm-hmm. And now our schedules, or I should say my schedule, is such that recording on the weekends is not feasible. So we record in the middle of the week, and the gold vendor isn't there. But yeah, we missed it. We missed talking about like this random collection of sets, but we don't want to pick them out ourselves. We want it to be generated for us.
Yeah.
So I kind of got to thinking, even though we record on the weekend, I think the vast majority of people aren't listening until Monday. It's already too late. Mm-hmm. So what difference does it make? I think as long as we come up with a catchy name for the segment, we can justify talking about the gold vendor. So what we're going to call this is What You Missed on the Gold Vendor. Because you didn't visit. You forgot.
It's
too late now.
It's too late, but we're going to talk about it. And we're going to make you
full of regrets. I didn't forget, though.
We're going to make you full of regrets.
So first of all, Doma House shoulders are available. You can get heavy, light, or medium, whatever you want. Doma House, I think, is a really great thing to just have in your inventory, especially now with mythic items being so popular. You often find yourself just needing one piece to put on your build to just give you some good stats. Doma House gives you both a line of max stamina and magicka.
Yeah, and those are really some of the best one-piece monster sets to have. Just full max stats.
Totally. So I would say it's absolutely worth picking up. Maybe even a couple of pieces of that. At the very least, I'd pick up like maybe a heavy piece, and just keep it in your inventory. And if you're like us and you put builds together all the time, you'll probably end up plugging that in on a build somewhere. There's also Storm Fist shoulders, Iron Blood ring, Leeching Plate ring. Here you go, Davius. Shulk exoskeleton.
Oh yeah. This, I have this marked. This is probably my favorite set in the game that I never actually use. But it's about to change. I am leveling up my MagDK.
Okay.
I think he's probably going to end up with the set. The set makes a lot of sense on a MagDK. This is essentially just the magicka version of Champion of the Hist. It gives you minor heroism, but it's a magicka-based version of it. But they also buffed it a while back where it also adds in just a nice little extra line of spell damage on the 5-piece. So I think it's a really great set. I think, anytime to get that minor heroism, especially on a DK, I think it's going to work out well. I would recommend, if you could, go back in time, get you some of these rings.
if you happen to find a time machine,
that's what you do first thing.
I had a Swamp Raider highlighted. There were some Swamp Raider rings as well. And I picked up a couple of these, not with the intention of selling them. I think I'm actually going to end up using them because my Stamina Necromancer MagCro full-on proc build, he's going to have to get reinvented as well. And I'm thinking Swamp Raider might be the answer. He does all disease and poison damage, and that's exactly, Swamp Raider gives 600 weapon damage to disease and poison damage abilities.
Yep, that's perfect.
And so it'll be just kind of going in alignment with me trying to move away from proc sets and more into stat-focused things. Although I think these kinds of sets like Swamp Raider technically are considered proc sets or whatever as far as how they behave on the server, but that's not what we mean when we say proc sets, right?
Yeah, we're just looking for that number boost.
So I don't know what else I would use for him, but I think Swamp Raider is going to be on there, and I'll figure probably Heartland Conqueror. Honestly, that would actually probably be really good.
The Heartland band.
Yeah.
They're up again.
I can't. 2 is enough, surely, right? I can't go more than that. But Swamp Raider, I think Swamp Raider is going to be a good one. If you've listened to me talk about my MagCro before and you've made a similar build and you're worried about that character now, Swamp Raider, I would keep your eye on that one. Go back in time, pick up those gold rings, and that is what you missed on the gold vendor. Emails and shout outs. Really, the only shout out again is Grizzly Khan for giving us that correction on Death Dealer's Fett.
Nice.
I will never. He was upset, man. He was throwing a tantrum.
He was Discord. Yeah, he was furious.
He threatened to leave the guild. Calm down, Grizzly. Yeah. I don't speak French. Okay. No, none of that's true. Grizzly's super chill dude. Nothing of the sort. But I think he was kind of feigning, like, I think his eyes were like rolling in the back of his head when we were talking about it.
Talking about feet,
Yeah. But yeah, the feet of this death dealer, they're probably really sore. So shout out to GrizzlyCon. Keep those corrections coming. If you'd like to send us a correction, you can email us at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. That's scrolling with an I-N, scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. Correct us on anything you like. Give us a suggestion on something you'd like to hear us talk about. Or if you have a question about something, we'll try to answer that here on the show. If you just want to say hi or whatever, it's all good. Send us an email at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. We also have our guild. It's called Stoons Goons. We have the guild, but it's really about the Discord. So I just don't want people dropping out of guilds that are actually like good guilds and have events and do things, like if you just wanted the Discord, you can just email us scrollinpodcast@gmail.com, jump in the Discord. But if you do want to be in the Stoons Goons, we're pretty cool and it's fun, and you can just kind of say, I'm a goon, and it's neat.
There you go.
We have a guild hall. Don't worry, we got all the Stoons crafting stations. You can use those as much as you like. Craft all the Stoons pieces you need.
I'd even say they're worn out from use.
I use them all the time.
Stoons.
So much Stoons.
Yeah, I forgot. I've kind of forgotten about the guild hall. I haven't finished my work. I think you've tried to distract me from the decorating orders. You needed a break from it.
I don't know. It's news to me. You're not finished. It looks finished in there. It's pretty.
Still far away from finished.
It's pretty impressive in there.
A lot of ways to go.
Well, okay. The actual inside, because it's the Grand Sijic Villa, right? So a huge portion of it is outside, and I don't think you've even touched the inside, have you?
There's stuff in
there. You need to get in that house and start decorating. What do I pay you for? I don't pay you. I think we're going to try a new thing as well. So I guess this is sort of an announcement. If you're in the Discord, so I'm sitting here talking about it's all about the Discord here. One sort of perk that you can get in on if you're in the Discord, and this is a brand new thing that we're trying. It's actually active right now, but this is the first time I've had an opportunity to tell people about it. In the Discord, we have some public chat channels, like voice channels, and then the voice channel that we use to record this podcast has been private until now. I've changed the permissions so that anyone who's on the Discord server can jump in to the podcast and listen while we're recording. You won't be able to say anything. Your voice will be disabled, but you can hear us talk. You can participate in the conversation via chat, and we can respond to things that you're saying in chat as we record. I think it could add a lot to the show. I think it could be a lot of fun. So what I'll do is just in the Discord, I'll let people know when the recording time is going to be, because it kind of changes based on me and Davius's schedule. It changes from time to time. It's usually Tuesdays, Wednesdays in that region there. So as it gets closer to recording time, a day or two before, I'll let people know in the Discord, hey, we're going to be recording at this time. If you want to jump in and tag along, you're certainly welcome to. If you have any questions about that, email us at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be happy to answer any of that stuff. Davis, what else you got?
I think that's everything.
Okay.
That's all of it.
50 episodes. This is our 50th episode.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not your 50th episode. But I was doing it by myself for a while there.
That's true. I'm probably late 30s.
Maybe in that region there.
I'm still in my prime over here.
Yeah, you got a lot to learn.
You're up there
about podcasting. Podcasting when you were still in diapers. 50 episodes. It's really cool that we've had enough listeners and enough responses and enough interest to keep us interested in going this long.
Yeah, I feel very true to that.
I feel like it's just really, really cool and very fortunate. This isn't something we monetize. It's strictly just for fun. We enjoy this game so much that we just can't stop talking about it. And one day long ago, we decided, why not push a record button and talk about it in a more structured sort of way. And it's been a lot of fun. We've made a lot of good friends, and
yeah.
I can't imagine not doing this. I know like sometimes we take these breaks and stuff depending on what's going on in our lives, but I'm pretty sure I'm always going to be coming back to scrolling here.
Yeah, and just all the appreciation thrown to the people that listen and put up with us on an episode basis.
Thank you for putting up with us. I know it's hard. It's tough. No, seriously, thanks. And please come back for episode 51. We'll see you next week.